USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another, and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My name is William Bill, call sign, nickname Hawk, Albracht. Graduated from Olma Catholic High School in 1966. Went down with my best buddy to enlist in the Army, looking to serve my country and for adventure. And I found them both. I ended up qualifying for officer candidate school, which I didn't even know existed. Graduated as a 19-year-old second lieutenant. By the time I got to Vietnam, I was a 21-year-old captain, the youngest captain to command, Green Beret captain in Vietnam to command troops. In Vietnam, a fire base, and they could be all sizes, was where artillery pieces were actually located. Dug in parapets, some had actually some overhead cover of some type if they were firing directionally in one direction, but they would be around different hostile areas so they could lend artillery support, direct artillery support to the infantry on the ground in combat. And it could be 3 pieces or it could be 23 pieces, depending on the size of the fire base. Fire base obviously is there for fire missions. They're called in by maybe relayed in by higher headquarters or by direct from, which is the best, from the units in the field. Now, those guys that are manning those, the fire directional control, the FTC, the actual guys that are loading the guns and plotting them and shooting them in elevation, putting in the loads in, they can't defend themselves while they're doing that because they're busy firing those cannons. So around them, they have to have security. And in my case, that was done by Special Forces trained mountain yards, which are the mountain people of the Central Highlands of Vietnam. Think of American Indians. They were that's where they came from, and they're tremendous people. Well, joining the Army through a barrage of tests. Apparently, the nuns and priests at Olma Catholic High School were correct. I was not applying myself. Scored very high. And so did my buddy Joe. And we both took the OCS test. Now, at that time, to me, it could have meant Oklahoma Cook School. I had no idea what OCS was. So officer candidate test, we took it. And I always like to remind people, I'm 18, okay, just 18. Passing score was 115, but on that particular test, I scored 115. So they said, you're going OCS. No, you're going. So I ended up down at Fort Benning, Georgia, Benning School for Boys, Infantry OCS. And towards the end of it, when it's clearly, we started, we lost half the guys in it. I mean, we lost them through attrition, through physical, through guys that were quitting. Anyway, after it was over, you could volunteer for your branch you want to go to. Besides infantry, you could volunteer for units. And I volunteered for Special Forces, where my brother was. And by God, I got it. So I went to Bragg. Well, I went to jump school, became paratrooper. Went to Bragg, went through Special Forces training. Hand up, let's go. I want to go, getting ready, going to go to Vietnam. Everything at Bragg was training you to go to Vietnam, because this is now 1967. It's really heating up. Orders come in, Thailand. And I'm going, what? And they said, well, it's a pretty good assignment. I go, well, yeah, but that's not exactly, it's not anything like I was planning on going with all this training I'd been through. And I went over to Thailand for a year and trained the Royal Thai Army, who were going to Vietnam. And at the end of that, I had 2 years commission time after my OCS commitment. And they said, hey, you're going to get out. And I said, no, I want to go one more year, but I want to go to Vietnam with Special Forces. And they granted that. And so I arrived mid-August 1969 turned 21, and at the end of that month, I was promoted to captain. And then from there, I went to, I had to talk to the colonel about where he says, where do you want to go? And I said, I want to go to the Mobile Strike Force. That's Spec Ops, Special Forces, Green Berets, right? So you got your guys on the A team, and they were out there slugging it out on the border every day, training the mountain yards and taking those guys on operations. The next is Special Operations. And when you think of that, a lot of people think of the SOG, Special Operations Group, Studies and Observation Group, depending who's calling the name on that. 7, 8, 9, 10-man teams, 2 Americans and indigenous personnel going across the fence, as we say, Laos, Cambodia, sometimes North Vietnam, sterile uniforms, gathering intelligence, finding out. If you went to SOG, it's a guaranteed, it had 100% casualty rate. You were guaranteed you were getting wounded in some fashion. And that could be anything from getting killed to getting a piece of shrapnel in your arm. The other special ops was the Mobile Strike Force, the 2-Corps Mike Force. Well, I should say the Mobile Strike Force. I wanted to go to the 2-Corps because that's where my brother had been, which was up in the central highlands of the country. And that was battalions of the highly trained Montagnards. They were all paratroopers. They're all paratroopers. They had gone, they were highly trained, much more than the camp indigenous were. They were highly paid by one of the 3-letter agencies. And they loved us and we loved them. They were fierce fighters, and they never let us down, not once. Those battalions of 400 to 450 men, we had 4 battalions in Pleiku and a reconnaissance company. That's where we want to go. They said, nah. Colonel said, no. He says, you just got here, young captain. You don't have any combat experience, which is true. I never heard a shot fired in anger. We're going to send you to Buprang, the southern part of the Central Highlands down by Cambodia. We're going to send you there because it's going to be hot. We know that the NVA, North Vietnamese Army, is coming down from, it's the spring offensive, I should say the fall offensive. The monsoons have come and gone. It's a rebuilding time for the camps, replacing sandbags, replacing bunkers. It's a kind of a rebuilding time. So they would come down and they were going to come in and they were going to hit this camp of Buprang. It was pretty much, it was a done deal. And then they're going to go and hit the camp, take that, and go to the camp, the district of Bambituit. Big place. And then once they took that, they were marching to the sea, cut Vietnam in half. That was their plan. They knew it was going to get hot. And when I got there and got hands-on intelligence from the guys who were actually gathering it, like the SOG guys and the camp guys, then that's when it all started to materialize. I was executive officer because I was a young captain. So around the camp of Buprang were 3 fire bases, Annie, Kate, and Susan. Kate was as close to the Cambodian border as you could believe. It was like a kilometer away, maybe a kilometer and a half. And then Annie and Susan were a bit further on, but they all supported the camp of Buprang, and they were mutually supporting of each other. It was manned by a Special Forces officer who was in charge of the defenses and a Special Forces sergeant, because they had about 150 Montagnards from all over the Central Highlands, the different A camps, there to provide security so the cannon cockers could do their job. So the colonel came out in October and says, what's an intelligence briefing? I had intel. I gave him the briefing, explained what I just told you, and he goes, that's great, good briefing, Captain, good briefing. Oh, by the way, pack your stuff, you're going to go out to Firebase Kate and take over security. Captain Barnum has come back, he's going on R&R. So I said, but sir, they're going to hit here, the NVA's coming down. I got to stay here, sir, I got to stay. I got to prep this, I'm working with my men, da-da-da. And he goes, That should probably be leaving here about 3 o'clock, make sure you're on it. Yes, sir. So on October 28th, 1969, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I chopper into Firebase Kate with some supplies. Captain Barnum's there. He jumps on the aircraft and says, hey, see you later, bye, see ya. And I get off the ground, and as I came in, I noticed, well, first of all, Danny Pierelli, a finer Special Forces NCO you're never going to find. He was my left hand, if not my right hand. We did everything together in concert. He was always with me. So I got off there, and I noticed they're playing volleyball, the Americans are, and some Mountaineers are actually playing too. They're playing cards, they're laying out there sunbathing, and the yards are just screwing around, not much anything going on, it's pretty quiet. And it was in the middle of nowhere. It was a bald hill about this little bit smaller than a football field for sure, surrounded on three sides by dense foliation, triple canopy jungle. And on the fourth side they did, but there was a nice gentle slope on the north side that ran through a path wide enough to put a deuce-and-a-half truck through to a hill. And the hill we call it Ambush Hill for reasons we'll get into. But around three sides, north, south, east, and west, extremely steep on these hills and about thigh-high grass down to where the jungle kicked in. So let's do a walkabout. So Danny and I took a walk around the campsite, and it was atrocious. None of the fighting positions were deep enough. There was no overhead cover. Fields of fire were obstructed. Not enough claymore mines. Concertina was not strung right. It was just not something that could be easily defended. So I called a meeting. And I called it with all the American leadership, the lieutenants and the NCOs there. And I also had a separate one with the Mountaineer because they had their own chain of command, their own leadership. So I said, okay, from this moment forward, no more volleyball, no more card playing, no more this. We have things to do to get this place ready. It's in terrible situation. What do you know? Are we going to get attacked? I don't have any intel, but I know that if we do get attacked, we have problems. And I said to Danny, and I went to talk to the Mountaineers, told them the same thing. And I said, Danny, to your knowledge, when's the last time they ran security around here? I said, well, tomorrow morning we're taking 20 guys, armed, light, ready to go. We're going to go down and we're going to start cloverleaf patrols around that. Done as much as we could. The sun sets there early. It's probably around 6:30. It gets dark, and I mean dark. There's no ambient light whatsoever. So that night, Danny and I had a hooch, a bunkered up hooch, overhead cover. I took my boots off, and I put them down, and I got my sleeping bag or poncho line or whatever I had out there. And I felt pretty good. I said, tomorrow morning we're going to go out and find out what's going on here. Because, see, in Vietnam, if you can take your boots off at night, that's good. That's a good thing. You feel you're in a safer environment. Because most of the time you sleep with your boots on if you're in a field. 11:30 that night, all hell broke loose. I'm up and I put my boots on, I laced them up, I tied them, and that's the last time I took my boots off for 5 days. Put my boots on, I ran out into the north end, down the gentle slope, through the thigh-high grass, through that path that you could drive a truck through, jungle on all sides, up another hill that had thigh-high grass and then a bunch of vegetation on the top. Not as big as Kate, but still a significant hill. Came running our night ambush. Came running about 6 guys, come charging down from Ambush Hill after all this firing, back and forth firing, down the hill, through the gap, and into Kate. What's going on? Beaucoup, the French influence, beaucoup VC. Now, VC, Viet Cong, those are the local guerrillas. So I called in Spooky. Spooky was a C-47 cargo aircraft from World War II that they used paratroopers used too. It had 2 big windows in it, and they had mounted in Gatling guns type mini machine guns. And they could spit out 1 round of 7.62 every square foot. And they were incredible. They were incredible. They would fly. They were dark, and they could fly low at night in the sky, and they're very hard to see. And I got Spooky 401, Hawk. What do you got?
Spooky 4-1, this is Chicken Hawk.
Roger, Chicken Hawk, this is 4-1, go.
Port on, get that son of a bitch.
Roger, he's to your echo over on the ridge line over there. We're pouring it on him now.
Roger. All over the echo side is where we're getting the bulk of it.
Roger that, we're fixing to put it on him.
Go ahead, bring some smoke on his young ass.
And when they shoot, see, what happens is you see this red tracers coming down. And then you hear this, then you hear the sound. So in the early days of the war, the enemy, uneducated, thought it was a dragon because they saw the fire and then they saw the destruction. So Spooky flew around there, and I worked him. I didn't know what I had, so I worked him all around the area for about 2:30 in the morning. I said, well, he's out of ammo. I'm out of time to go to bed. So I went back in and laid down, and at dawn, pre-dawn, incoming. So now it's the 29th. Incoming. And I'm telling you, it was poorly, defenses weren't very good. A lot of casualties. We had mortars, rockets, and recoilless rifles. Directly came in. It rained fire and steel. Lots of wounded. And I got up, and we were patching them up, and I said, Denny, they got this in hand. Let's get those guys. Let's go out and find out what's out there. Got up there, and sure enough, on top there, you could see where our people had been dug in and where they had spotted the enemy off the other side of Ambush Hill in a dense foliation at the bottom of the hill. There was blood trails. There was a pith helmet that had been shit shot out of it. There had been, I think, a broken stock of some kind. We knew we had seen, it was an NVA pith helmet with the red star and everything. So I said, okay, let's go down. So Infantry 101, point, main body, flank security, tail. We started down to penetrate, and was walking through this thigh-high grass, and all of a sudden, about 30 yards away, all hell broke loose. They opened up on us, and there was a lot of them. Boom, cover and concealment. Well, we had concealment. We didn't have cover. Cover something you could absorb a shot in, but they couldn't really see us. So we low crawled back. We got behind a berm, and I started calling in aircraft to try and find out what was there, but there was nobody in the area. I said, hey, we'll get you somebody, my call sign, not initially, but became Hawk, so we're just going to go with that. So I pulled everybody back behind the berm. I said, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We slipped down unseen into the jungle, through the thigh-high grass, on the side, enemies over here in dense jungle. We now are in the jungle, and I put them on line, and we're going to make a gate. We're going to come around on line and flank them. Flank the bad guys and roll them up. Infantry 101. I'm in the process of doing that, and a forward air control arrives on the scene and goes, hey, Hawk, he says, I see you, I see what you're doing, and I see them, and there's a lot more of them than there are you, and I mean a lot more of them. Best pull back. Well, tell me twice, so I pulled back, and as I'm trying to direct airstrike into that, he comes back, he goes, Hawk, he says, they're encircling you. They're coming around Ambush Hill. They're coming around. It looks like they're trying to cut you off so you can't get back to Kate. And there was a situation there where we had to retrieve one of our wounded, which we did. And we took off. Well, don't call me twice. We went back to Firebase Kate. So now it's mid-morning, 29 October, 1969. And we buttoned up and let the games begin. What had happened is 3 regiments of NVA had come down from the north. 2 hit the camp of Buprang, knock it out, and then go on to Bamitude and, like they said, cross the country, cut it in half. And all of a sudden, this Firebase was in their way, and they thought, well, you know what, maybe we ought to knock this out real quick, because if we don't, we're going to be attacking Buprang, and this Firebase is going to be firing in our back pocket. That Firebase had only been there a month. Their reconnaissance probably didn't see it prior to that. We now had somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 NVA surrounding us, and I had about 165 men, 170 men. things are not looking good for the home team. We started calling in airstrikes and those helicopter gunships. They'd come in and they were incredible, absolutely incredible. They would come in hot and fast, and they'd have rockets. They had miniguns, and they had their M60 machine guns. And when the NVA came at us with these massive attack, hundreds came out of that wood line to attack us and overrun us. They beat them back. Of course, we're firing from our new deeper overhead cover defensive positions that they had. They seemed to appear overnight. And then when they were off station, then the jets would come in, the fast movers would come in. And they'd bomb the piss out of them, and napalm and bombs. And I'm constantly calling in airstrike after airstrike. And during the lull period, well, they would ground attack us again, but we managed to hang on. We managed to hang on.
Who's got eyes in the sky? Who's watching and then helping you direct the air code?
It's a bird dog. It's a Cessna, some type, and they are called a FAC, Forward Air Controller, Air Force. I can talk to the gunships, but I cannot talk to the fast movers. I can't talk to the F-4s. I have to talk to the Forward Air Controller, and he tells me. I talked to the Forward Air Controller. I said, I'm taking recoilless rifle. I'm seeing it, so I'm at the south end. It's coming to my southeast. I am taking recoilless rifle. Can you see? He goes, can you do me any better than a Hawk? I said, well, the jungle kind of all looks the same. So I said, I tried to vector him in, but then I hit upon an idea. So I gathered up tracer rounds, all that I could, and I put them in my magazine, and I went there and laid on the perimeter, and I said, watch this. Boom, 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 boom. And the tracer rounds went right in there, and he says, got it. Put a rocket in. F-4s come in. That was that. We call it rifles done. And the guys, and now the NVA knocked out all the artillery. That was done. They it was unfireable. So those guys became infantry, and they did a magnificent job. My artillery guys, they were just stunningly great. And the wounded, the serious, we got out, but so many were walking wounded. I too was wounded, got hit in the arm, patched it up, and let's go round two. Let's go forward. And a lot of the guys were like that. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to be there. We were holding the ground. We were holding this area. And we were the only thing happening in Vietnam at the time. There was nothing else going on. So we had all the assets that we could use, which saved our lives. 30th of October of 1969, they had brought in, unbeknownst to us, a 37 millimeter anti-aircraft gun emplacement, and it's mobile. And they brought it in. We didn't know. And Joker 85 came in low and hot and fast, and with his ordnance, and they blew him out of the sky. Gunship, Joker 85. Nolan and his entire crew. And I was so close, I could feel the heat of the explosion when he went down. Well, that was it for close-in helicopter, gunship, air support, and rightly so. It was getting suicidal. The fast movers could still come in, but it was now getting desperate. So now it's October 31st, and I speak an entire time about Lieutenant Ron Ross was killed. So his name was Ron Ross, and he came into my kind of hoots there, and which faced out on the side of the hill of Kate, sort of the side of the hill, but faced out into the enemy, which could see us, and they would shoot at us. And he was artillery lieutenant, and he came in, he had a steel pot on, and his flak jacket, and he says, "Hey, I got in yesterday, but I know you were busy, so I'm here can you give me a briefing?" I said, "Yeah, okay, here's the deal." And I gave him a briefing, and it was not good. I said, we are in a very precarious, we're in a very bad situation, and we're running low on everything, and choppers, etc. And so I got to talking to him, and I looked down and saw a wedding ring. I said, well, before that, I said, so where are you from in the world? And that was the big thing. Where are you from in the world? And he goes, Appleton, Wisconsin. I said, Appleton, Wisconsin? So I grew up in Rock Island, Illinois. He goes, neighbors, oh. And that was kind of fun. I said, hey, so you're married? He goes, yeah, I'm married. And he takes his helmet off, and he takes out one of those pictures of a newborn that you get in the hospital back 100 years ago. And he says, this is my son. My wife just had our son about 3 months ago. I'm going on R&R in a few days to meet her and meet my new son in Hawaii. And I'm thinking, the hell are you doing here? You know, he came as a replacement. And I said, wow, that is really something. He goes, yeah. He says, it really is. I said, well, that's wonderful. Okay, back to reality. Here we go. Here's the thing. Ron, two things. He was short and wiry. He was like about 132-pound wrestler. And he had the bluest eyes I'd ever seen, and I've met Frank Sinatra. So I said, here's the thing, Ron. The command post, or what we're using for a command post, FDC/, is in that bunker over there. I said, that's about another 35 yards to there, 35 meters, whatever you would call it, to there. Now, we got to go there next. Now, I'm going to take off at a dead run. I said, and they're going to shoot at me. They're going to shoot a B-40 rocket or something at me, as they always do. So I want you to wait. I want you to wait until they do that, and before they can reload, then you take off. Yeah, okay. Boom, I take off like a shot. I'm out like a rocket. And two things happened. One, I look over my right shoulder, and sure enough, there's a B-40 rocket being launched. You can tell by the orange tail. Two, I heard the footfalls of Ron Ross behind me. I got to the bunker, and we had a splash wall which covered the entrance, and I got there, and the B-40 rocket blew up, and concussion tossed me in. Totally okay. But Ron wasn't so lucky. He got hit right in the carotid artery. And I pulled him in. And I put him in my arms, and I tried to stop the bleeding, but that was not to be. And those beautiful blue eyes, I watched them as the life departed. So I said to myself, if I get out of this, I'm going to go to Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm going to find his mother and father and his wife, and tell them what happened to their father, their brother, and that they should know that he died in the arms of a friend. And I'm going to do that. That was on the 31st. So on that same day, we started getting incoming of a magnitude that we haven't had. Now, we had mortars, we had rockets, we had everything else, recoilless rifle. But the earth shook. It felt like my DNA was shook. And I called a forward air control. I said, what's going on? We're taking heavy incoming. He flew west towards Cambodia. He goes, Hawk. He says, we're taking artillery. You're taking artillery from across the fence, Cambodia. I said, well, bomb it. He goes, can't. It's a neutral country. And I'm like, holy shit, what do I do now? And he says, the only way to do that is if the ground commander declares a tactical emergency. I said, declare tactical, Roger. And they went in and bombed the piss out of this Camp Le Roland, was the name of it, in Cambodia, which was a Cambodian army camp run by the NVA. And they went in there, and my name appeared on Richard Nixon's desk within an hour as creating an international incident, and actually twice, because I did it again. And so that took care of artillery, but we still had to deal with everything else. They even called in a B-52 arc light strike. And it was the most awesome thing that I've ever seen. And danger close is where you can take casualties. We actually got, one of our guys was wounded by some of the shrapnel from it. It was okay, but he got actually hit. It was awesome. We still didn't break their back. So I said, if there's codes and everything. I said, if you guys want me to hold on to this worthless piece of property. You're going to have to get me reinforcements. So the request went up, and I found this out later, went up to the Americans, and they said, absolutely. 4th Division, 100 kilometers north, 4th Infantry, 10,000 men. Yeah, we can do this. And they said, no. This Vietnamization, we're turning the war over to the Vietnamese, therefore, 23rd ARVN, Army of the Republic of South Vietnam, 23rd ARVN is in Bambi Tuot, 10,000 men. Let's get them guys in there to come in there. So they went to the ARVN and said, 23rd and said, hey, you guys got to go in and get these guys out of Kate. And they go, yeah, no, we don't and we're not. No, if you don't understand this, they're all going to die if you don't come in and save this camp. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Because once they knock that out, they're going to come hit Bambi Tuot, and I got to have all my men here. So neither side would blink.
Was there something going on between the mountain and the regular?
Yeah, they hated each other. They absolutely hated each other. The Montagnards had been oppressed and put upon by the Vietnamese for 1,000 years. They forced them off the coast and up into the mountains, and they treated them like subhumans. They called them savages. They had no rights. They had no voting rights. They had no say in the government whatsoever. Now, the NVA might have been a little bit worse because they'd come down from the north and take their young men and cattle, but the South Vietnamese were no heroes to them whatsoever. But they loved us. So they said, don't worry, Special Forces. Remember the Mike Force I told you about, the Mobile Strike Force? We're sending a Mike Force. This is all coded up. We're sending a Mike Force. I'm going, oh, God, yes. A battalion or two of my force. Didn't know there was thousands out there. I just figured there was lots. And on November 1st, with my binoculars, and I hardly even needed them, I could see across these rolling hilltops, dense jungle, thigh-high grass, and then some kind of balding thigh-high grass area. But I could see across this rolling terrain, the Mike Force was landing. They were probably about 3.5 kilometers away. And they came in, and they had planned to send in about 600 of these highly professional Montagnards led by American Green Berets. And they, by my estimate, counting birds coming in, and I could hear them on the radio, I probably got about 100, I'm going to say about 180 guys on the ground. Of course, I'm not the only one that saw them, the NVA saw them. And they probably shifted 1,000 guys over there. And they took them under fire on the LZ on the landing zone. Now you cannot land troops on an LZ that's under fire, that there's a battle fire. So whatever was there was there. So they fought, and they fought like banshees. They really did. And I'm listening to this. This is the best of the best, better than any American infantry battalion in my estimation. This is a Green Beret-led professional bunch of I don't want to say mercenaries, let's call them warriors. And they fought. But they were overwhelmed. They fell back, another skirmish line. They fell back and they took on the NVA, and the NVA pushed and pursued. They fell back again, but they couldn't hold. So that is my relief that's supposed to come to me. They're gone. They said, we can't get to you. And I thought, my heart sunk. Oh my God. This is the best of the best. The only way we're going to get out of here is what we do ourselves. When that was done, I gathered the leadership together and I said, gentlemen, we have three options. One, we can surrender, but that's never going to happen. Two, we can die in place, but to what end? We're not Davy Crockett holding the Alamo for Sam Houston to gather an army. Or we can attempt to execute a breakout from here. And that's what you're going to do. Once you take counsel, once you get the input back from you, leadership is leadership. You're in command. You must make that decision. That is your decision to make. Good or bad, it's on you. And I made the decision, and they understood, and everybody was all in. So I sent a message to headquarters. I said, we are evacuating, abandoning Firebase Kate. Send it. Coded it up. I said now to everybody, I said, okay, start destroying all the codes. We had all those code books for transmissions, all your FDC stuff, your fire directional control, man, anything you have there. I want a thermite grenade down the tubes. They're unfireable, but I don't want them to fall in enemy hands. Thermite grenade down the tube, so that would destroy the tubes. The yards, they knew what to do. I said, you're going out with your water, what ammo, oh, we were out of water. Sorry. What water you have. We had maybe enough ammo left to repel an attack, but maybe not. Take what you have, and everything else, leave it. Because we're going to be traveling fast and light. Leave it. And then headquarters came back, and they answered my request, or my request to abandon Firebase Kate, and they said, permission denied. I said, okay. Write this. We are leaving Firebase Kate. Send it. And we went and proceeded. And about half an hour later, they came back and said, permission granted. And what we're going to do is have Spooky come in and at nightfall. And they said, best do it at night. Oh, yeah, gee, that never occurred to me. Well, we're going to do it at night. We're going to wait for Spooky to come in. They're going to shoot in front of you, and they're going to clear the way. And then we're going to have the mic force come in closer to you. So we're going to shoot the way and through the enemy, and then you're going to link up with the mic force. There's 180 guys, plus yours, and get out of there. I go, well, yeah, it's not a bad plan, right? And what do they say about plans? They're great until the first shot's fired. I put the word out. Sun sets. Now it's about a quarter to 7 p.m., maybe 7. Dark. And I had all the men move from the south end to the north end. And it was pretty tense. It was pretty tense. And oh, God almighty, we were scared. I was scared. Everybody was scared. Guys were saying, hey, if I don't make it out of this and you do, please tell my wife this or tell my mother this or whatever. And it was that kind of a moment. We gathered, and I was on the side of this hill headed down the slope, and I got this radio called Prick 25. It's about that big, carried by one of the artillery guys. And I got the microphone. It's a push to talk. You push, you transmit, you release, they can transmit back. So I'm there on the side of the hill waiting, and now for the first time, I don't have anything to do. I've been calling in airstrikes. I've been coordinating this. I've been doing all these things with the guys because we got penetrated. I'd have to lead not only just me. We'd all have to pitch in, move forward in a group, and repel where the perimeter was broke, repel the bad guys back out. I've been doing all this and doing all this and doing all this. And now I'm not doing anything except laying on the side of the hill waiting for Spooky to come to shoot so we can get the hell out of there. All of a sudden I hear, Spooky 5-3, this is, Hawk, this is Spooky 5-3. Yeah, go ahead. Listen, now, we've had some mechanical problems, and we have to go back, but don't worry, we got another one coming. I think from Fan Rang, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like, oh, time is getting away here. We knew that the NVA were going to try a night attack. We just sensed that, and it turned out they were. It turned out later on, documents show that they were going to have a final night assault and kill everybody at all costs, and no matter Spooky or whatever. So we waited. Now, a second one. Now it's getting about 8:15. This is, hey Hawk, this is Spooky 3-5. Go ahead. He says, yeah, listen, we got a little problem here. We got a mechanical problem. We got to go back. But don't worry, another one's coming. I said, well, I'm thinking, well, I am worried, okay? And they go back, and the guys are looking at me. I'm going, not yet, not yet. On the air, I go, Spooky 4-1, Spooky 4-1. Hawk, over. No answer. I've had crystal clear communication. Now I have no answer. Spooky 4-1, Spooky 4-1. Hawk, over. Nothing. So I look at my RTO, my radio telephone operator, radio carrier, and I said, Texas, damn thing, it doesn't work. And he goes, sir, you got to release the switch, push the talk switch. You've got it depressed. It's not going to come in, sir. And I looked down at my knuckles, and were white, frozen. Really frozen. I look, hey, Hawk, right away, come back. Listen, we're still going to be a while. We're da-da-da-da. And it hit me. If I don't get control of my fear, I'm going to get everybody killed. And I looked up into the cosmos, and it was a beautiful, starry night, some clouds here and there. And I said, dear Lord, talked right directly to the big ranger. Dear Lord, apparently this is my time to go. I'm ready. But I ask you one thing and one thing only. Let me get as many of these fine young men to safety before you take me, and I'm ready to go. And with that, at that moment, that exact moment, I was no longer afraid. Everything left. And I was no longer afraid. I knew I was going to die, and I thought I knew where, the gap, for sure. That's where I'd put an ambush. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had a job to do. So I ran back and made sure we didn't lose anybody. I came forward, and they started dropping mortars on us. I said, we got to go now. And we started down to the gap. High grass, and the jungle was probably 40 meters ahead of us. High grass to that, then the gap, jungle, ambush hill. And the NVA were all, when I went back to check, I could hear them coming up the hill, but they were coming up very slow. They had initiated their movement to the top of the hill, and there was a lot of them. So I got down there, and we're moving at the quick step, and all of a sudden, the lead guy goes, my point man stops dead. Stop, boom. And we're like, so I go out to the phone, what's going on? The interpreter, he goes, he was so scared he couldn't move. Because this gap was there. It was 30 meters in front of me. He couldn't move because he knew the enemy was there, and he knew they were going to kill him. Okay. So I slung my Car 15 under, full auto, front of trigger, this hand with the radio, and I'm talking to headquarters the entire time. I'm talking to the camp of Buprank. I said, I'm entering the gap, and I'm ready to go. This is going to happen. But it didn't. There was nobody there. They were all on the other side. So as they were coming through, I'm in the gap, and I'm going, let's go. Danny's pushing the rear. And the point man was told, go left around Ambush Hill, but he went right. And I see this now. We got some moonlight. I'm going, oh, I'll fix it later. So when I ran up there, I got up to him. Well, it's too late to correct this snake that we got going. So I got up, and I'm calling out to the mic force. I'm coming in. We're going to penetrate into the jungle. It's thick, and it's at night. It's the worst possible thing you can ever have to do, is to link up at night in a combat area. And as we're coming through, they come back, and they said, they said, we're not there. We couldn't get there. You're going to have to come to us. Which meant I'd have to find them in the jungle, because they didn't want to give their place out in the clear. And just about that time, when you think it can't get any worse, you got no support, Spooky's still not on station. And your link up isn't there, the NVA opened up. And they opened up with a 51 caliber machine gun, which rounds are about that big. And they were on top of Ambush Hill. They were set up. All the tacticians say they were set up to get you, because they knew we were coming to the left because it was in the clear. But we came so close to the top of that hill, they couldn't do anything but be in this dark vegetation that's there. But as soon as we started going down, they flipped that gun around, and they opened up on us. But the deal was, all of a sudden I have rounds going over my head about this high. Now they're green, but it doesn't register. I'm just seeing rounds going over my tracers. Cease fire. I'm calling cease fire. Spooky, cease fire. We're not shooting, Hawk. We're not shooting, my friend. Calm down. We're not shooting. Calm down. Yeah, okay.
Doc, is this man firing at us or firing at you, my friend? Okay, buddy, he's firing at me. He's firing at me. What aircraft is up there? Shadow 48, we are not firing. Spooky 41 is not firing, Chicken Hawk. Are you sure that you're getting fire from above?
Thought he was. I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind, but it wasn't. There were green tracers, communist, NVA tracers. And the thing was, is the machine gun they used has a tripod, but they have a bar in front. You can only lower it so far. And that thing was lowered as low as it could be to shoot us in that valley or that dip. But they couldn't get any lower. They couldn't get another foot and take our heads off. So all the rounds went over. We hit the jungle. And it was organized chaos. No, not even organized. It was chaos. I'm out there. By now they knew where we were and everything. And I'm yelling, this way, this way. As we go into the jungle, I'm getting everybody we can in there. And we get in deeper and deeper. We're crashing through this. And I said, head count is just tell me if you got all your people as the ranks go down. And they said, we're pretty damn sure we got everybody. Because we certainly didn't leave everybody back on that hill to die. So we stepped off into the night. And problem was that I had a flashlight with a red filter. I had a map and a compass. And I knew generally within a half a grid square, which a grid square is a kilometer by a kilometer, where the Mike Force was, and we want to link up with them. But I just didn't know. So we went on through the night, and about half an hour later, we're in single file, because that's the way you have to move in the jungle at night. And I was and I'm running, and all of a sudden, because I had the compass and the map, all of a sudden I heard some crashing coming through. Somebody's coming our way. Everybody down. Down, weapons pointed. I called the Mike Force. I said, this is Hawk. I hear you coming. I said, you're coming. You're going to be about 6 feet to my left. You're coming right at me now. They come back. Hawk, we don't have anybody out. And they go by. I mean, I could smell them. They went by, and we sat there in this dark jungle, weapons out, for a long time. And they were looking for us, really looking for us. And as they went by, once the last sound was heard, we waited, and then we waited a little bit more. And up and moved. At about 2:30 in the morning, now this is November 2nd, we're looking at the map and the red filtered, and I'm looking at this with Danny and my artillery guy, and I said, there's about an 80-meter field here. We're on the edge of this jungle, kind of flat. I think this is where they are, terrain-wise. I think this is where they are. I don't know why I had this inspiration. Just about that time, I heard a definite metallic clank. And that's, and it's the sound of a rifle dropping. Everybody knows that sound. And I called them, and I said, this is Hawk. Can you have somebody come into this field and identify yourself so we can link up with you? I said, why don't you send somebody out in the field? They didn't know. We could have been captured. So I told them, I turned to Danny and the guys, and I said, listen, here's the deal. I'm going to go out there. I don't know. Could be enemy rifle drop. I don't know. But somebody's over there. If it's not, it's the enemy and they kill me or capture me. Danny, take these guys, back away about 1 kilometer, then head north to Boot Prang. Find some place, hunker down. They'll be looking tomorrow morning with helicopters for you guys. Keep radio silence. Got it. So I walked through the field, and I said, I'm an American. Are you the Mike Force? I didn't whisper it. I certainly didn't yell it. Nothing. I continued to walk, and it was moonlight now. You could clearly see me. And I'm an American. Is this the Mike Force? Closer. I'm an American. Is this the Mike Force? Now I'm coming right up on the jungle's edge, high grass jungle, and I actually step into this jungle, which is very dark, and I look down, and there's this mountaineer looking up at me in a foxhole, smiling with tiger fatigues on. I went, oh God, thank you, Jesus. So I step in, and Sergeant Stevens and Simmons were the Special Forces sergeants that had command of these guys. He said, Huck, where's the rest of your men? I said, across that field. He says, go get them and get them now. We got to get out of here. They're everywhere. So I ran back across the field. Let's go. And we all quick-timed over there, linked up with the Mike Force. They took point, and they took a trail. They sandwiched us in the middle, and we walked a very surreptitious route back to the camp of Buprang. I was pretty exhausted, and we walked through the gates of Buprang at 11:30 a.m. on 2 November 1969. We kept radio silence all the way, so they thought we were all dead. So we walked in there, they were pretty shocked. So to this day, I did my job. I did it. Hero, no, we were all brave when we needed to be brave. That's what we were, and that's what we are. So I got back there, and it was a big deal. And, oh, hey, good job. And I'm going, I'm tired. I need to go to bed. So the group commander, his name was Iron Mike Healy. He was a group commander of the 5th Special Forces of Vietnam. Only one, just a colonel. But he had 5,000 Green Berets under him. Anyway, he flew out to the camp to see me, to congratulate me firsthand. Now, Nha Trang, Vietnam headquarters was the flagpole, right? And it is like every other headquarters. They're back there. We're out there fighting a war. They're back there in starched jungle fatigue, spit-shine jungle boots. They actually had an ice cream store, parlor, if you will, back there, which we just laughed at all the time. Hey, the Dairy Queen's back there. Hey. Well, he flies out there, and he said, "You're to report to the landing zone. You know, his chopper flies in." This is maybe 2 days after it happened, and my team is lined up there, and they're all there, and I'm standing there, attention. He gets off the helicopter, and he goes, "Oh, Captain Albracht, great job, the best traditions ever in the history." And he gave me a hug when men didn't hug. Okay, he gave me a hug, and he goes, "Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? You want to be my personal aide? Name your assignment, you got it." So I look at him. Now, OIC is officer in charge. I said, "Sir, I'd like to be the OIC of the Dairy Queen there in the Trang." My team was, and he looked at me, and I'm smiling. He looked at me like, "I'm afraid that position's already taken. What else would you like to do?" I said, "Sir, I'd like to go to the Mike Force." Done. Turn around, did a about face, got in the helicopter, flew away, never saw him again. So, but I got where I wanted to go. Okay, so what they had back then is they called them impact awards. And what they would do is if somebody did something of note, they would give you an impact award, and it could be a Bronze Star, a Silver Star, nothing higher than a Silver Star. And they would give it to you, and then they backfill with the paperwork, or even maybe make it higher. They can make it higher, but they want to give you something right away. So this is now about 5 or 6 days later, and radio traffic comes in. I'm at Buprang. By the way, the enemy did follow us back, but they weren't there yet. They said, "Hey, put on a clean uniform and be my Lieutenant General Cochran of the First Field Force Vietnam was at a ceremony, and he wants you to attend." Now that day I'll never forget it because it was at Bambi-Tuet. It was so freaking windy. All aircraft was shut down in the Central Islands where I was. All aircraft. It was that windy. He said he's sending a helicopter for you. And I thought, well, okay. So a 3-star general does actually outrank Mother Nature. So, and by God, these chopper pilots come in and they land, and I'm in a clean uniform. And what was this? An award and decoration ceremony. So I'm there, and about that time it lands, and I'm getting ready on. These guys from the Mike Force came up, and they're carrying like 4 wounded guys. And they said, "Sir, we just been in a firefight, not about half a click from your camp because the NVA's here now. And these guys got shut up, and one of them was a medic." He said, "I can't save them. So I don't have enough here to save them. If we don't get these guys to a hospital, they're going to die." And they said, "Would you take them? Would you take them to the hospital?" And I looked at the helicopter. I said, "Can we take these guys to the hospital?" They said, "Sir, this is your helicopter. You can go anywhere you want." Loaded them up, and we flew them to the nearest hospital of size, and we offloaded them. We got them into there, and I think maybe one passed, but the rest were good. And then they flew me over to the awards and decoration ceremony, and I got there just as I saw Lieutenant General Cochran's helicopter fly away. I missed the ceremony. And there was no award. So I'm young. They said they had a Silver Star with recommendations for even higher there for you, but he got a little pissed off when you didn't show up. And I go, "That'll catch up to me." And don't you know that it did in 2012? Yeah. And then I went to the 2 Corps Mobile Strike Force. And this is where I wanted to be. It was the greatest job that I had there, and I ended up running a battalion of American Special Forces A team, which is supposed to be 12 guys. We were a little light, and 450 Montagnards, and they were phenomenal fighters. And we got into some significant strafes, but the one that I am currently involved with, my incredible co-author of the first book, Marvin Wolf. He's the best. We're writing a second book about the Battle of Dak Siang, and that was going to be, the working title is The Last Green Beret Battle of Vietnam. And it was. They started disbanding the Mike Force afterwards, but we took on 2 NVA regiments, and we fought for 5 weeks. But and that's the one I got hit the 3rd time, and they threw me out. I mean, they sent me out of the field post haste. But I walked away from each one.